Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to talk about two terms which many people use interchangeably but should not, in my opinion, which is stakeholder and SME. SME stands for subject matter expert. So if you are interested to know more about it, keep watching. Now, stakeholders are a group of people who have interest or influence in the product being developed. Now, the keywords here are interest and influence because they have a say in the product which is being developed. Why? Because we are building a product for them, and that's why it's important for them. Because eventually the product which gets developed is going to have an impact on their day-to-day working. That is why they are the stakeholders, because they have the interest and influence in the way the product is getting developed. Now, stakeholders, they play a very crucial role in a product development environment because they provide really valuable feedback. Once the product is developed, we are able to gather the feedback from them and then improve our processes, all in all to make sure that the product meets their needs and the organizational needs as a whole as well. So they play a very crucial role in the product development methodology. Now, the main reason stakeholder is important is because they have a broader view. If you work with teams, you understand this, because suppose you're working with an engineer, their viewpoint is limited to what they're developing. I wouldn't say limited, but very confined to what they're developing, what are the new technologies out there, because that is what their main role is, right? Their viewpoint is confined to that. If you're working with a product designer, their viewpoint is going to be confined to design thinking and all, right? Now, why stakeholder is important is because they have a broader viewpoint. So they are thinking about a lot of things at the same time. They are thinking about the market demand, they are thinking about the organizational strategy, customer needs, the business objectives. So their horizon is a little broader than that of an engineer or a product person. We are very much within the product because we are building it day in and day out. But stakeholders, they're closer to market users, and that is why their viewpoint is really important for a product team to consider. Now, stakeholders can be internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. Like, they could be the end user, they could be the customer, they could be executives within the organization, they could be managers, they could be the subject matter experts of some. They could be internal as well as external. Now, subject matter experts, on the other hand, they are specialists, as the name suggests. Like, they have expertise in one particular field, in their own field. For example, if I am, you might have heard there are SEO specialists, there are security specialists. So they are expert in their own domain area. They know ins and outs of that. So that is what a subject matter expert. Due to their in-depth knowledge and experience in their particular domain, they are considered experts in that area. And that is why their say is very important. That is why their feedback is really important. Now, due to their in-depth knowledge and experience, they are considered the authorities in that particular field, and that's why it's important to get the viewpoint of an SME in that particular area or in that particular domain. They provide domain related guidance, insight, or requirements just to make sure that the product is accurate, it's compliant, and it aligns with the industry standards. Now, they may offer technical advice, or they may suggest some best practices or some specialized knowledge to support the development process. Now, as I had earlier mentioned, stakeholders, they have a broader focus. SMEs, on the other hand, they have a very narrow focus. So by narrow, I mean because they are the experts in their field, so their expertise is what product teams leverage. Now, in some cases, SMEs could be stakeholders as well because they are directly impacted by the product that is getting developed, but they have to wear both of these hats whenever needed. When we are asking them a question about their expertise, about their domain field, then they should be informing the product team about that particular thing based on their experience working on it. But when they are part of maybe a sprint review meeting, as a stakeholder they are listening in, then they have to provide feedback as a stakeholder and not necessarily as a domain matter expert in their particular field. So I hope this has provided you a little bit information about what a stakeholder is and what a SME is. Now I'm going to try to explain that with an example. For example, take a banking application. So for a mobile banking application, the stakeholders are firstly the end users, right? Those are the people who interact with the product daily, or maybe not daily or weekly or whenever, but they interact with the product directly on a particular cadence. Now, they have a stake or they have a say in the product features, which are getting developed, the usability of the product as a whole, the security and stuff like that. Now, the users could be the individuals who are using the application for their personal use. Like I use the banking application for my own use, but it could also be an organization who are using it for business purposes. So both of them are the stakeholders for the mobile banking application. Now, users also are the customer support executives, because if I have a problem while I'm accessing my banking application, when the customer care executive, the ones who are answering the phone and solving the problems, they are also accessing the product, and their use cases are a little different from mine. So they also end up being the end users for the particular product, and hence they are a stakeholder. Similarly, whoever the end user of the product is, they would be considered stakeholders for the product. Now, thinking a little differently from end users, say a compliance team or the legal team, they are also stakeholders for the product, because it's a mobile bank application. It's important to consider the legalities of it as well. So you cannot develop a banking application without making sure that it is legally compliant. The legal team who are responsible for compliance, they become the stakeholders, because they have a say in what should go in a product, and more importantly, what should not go in a product. They make sure that the product meets the regulatory requirements and it adheres to the privacy and the security law. So that's why the product manager who's working on building a mobile banking application, for them, not only the end users, but the legal team and the compliance team, they are also the stakeholders, because they have to listen into them and then make sure that the product is being developed so that it considers all those legalities. So whenever the sprint review meetings happens, they have to make sure legal team is part of it, so that we are not developing any feature which is not compliant. So that's why they become the stakeholders for that particular product. Now, SMEs on the other hand, for example, security experts could be the SMEs. So those are the people who have knowledge about the cyber security and how the application can be made secure, because that is the basic requirement of a banking application. So then the security teams in the organization, they become the SMEs, because that is what their expertise in, that is what the product team who's building, the product and engineering team who's building the product, they might need their viewpoint on making sure that the product is secure and it's not open to potential vulnerabilities and threats, because that could be a huge fine for a business altogether, right? So security team here becomes the SME. Or taking another example, financial teams. Now those are the teams who have expert knowledge in banking and finance. Now I, as a product manager, if I am working on a banking application, I might not know so much about finance, so that's why I would go to a finance expert to take their guidance when it comes to, implementing features, thinking how the end users would think about it. So they would provide the insights on financial regulations, the transaction process, the industry best practices, to ensure that the app meets the needs of the banking customer. So their viewpoint is going to be important, and they become the experts in that particular domain. Taking another example for an SME, you have accessibility specialists. So people in the organization who are part of this accessibility team, they are experts in making sure the product is usable for people with disabilities. So that's why they provide guidance on the compliance and the accessibility standards. So they become the SMEs. Now, we are not building a banking application for accessibility team or a finance team or a security team, but we are building the application for the end user, and we are building it for the legal team, right? So I hope this has given you a clear distinction on what a stakeholder is and what a SME is. So let me know via comments on what your experience has been when you are dealing with both of these terms, and how do you personally use it. If there's nothing else, I'm going to see you all next week. Bye bye.